Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. Before we dive into this powerful episode, please remember to subscribe to our channels and to give us a 5-star rating on iTunes to continue hustling. This episode is sponsored by Imaging Services, Chiro Health USA, Chiro Moguls, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, Sherman College of Chiropractic, New Patients in a Box, the Influencer Authority Podcast Training, Mango Voice, Life Chiropractic College West, and M-Sculpt. Let's hustle.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 487 of the Chiro Hustle podcast. I'm your producer, Luke Millette, and here's your host, James Chester.
So today we had the opportunity of interviewing Dr. Jazz Shirley. And if you want to hear a story of how to add more vitalism and philosophy into your chiropractic practice, stay tuned. Welcome back. This is another episode of the Chiro Hustle podcast. It's Jazz Shirley coming in from Oxfordshire, UK today. And I don't say that a whole lot, so let's try it one more time. Oxfordshire, the UK. And episode 486 of the Chiro Hustle podcast. I always kind of joke around, but can you believe that? I can, because I've done all of these. It's a real fun thing to do, to share this chiropractic story, to share this message, and to really inspire people with the message of chiropractic. It's global, so it's really cool to have a great European guest coming on today. But before we jump into this episode, I'm going to let you guys know why we do what we do over here at Chiro Hustle. First things first, freedom of speech. We believe freedom of speech is so important, and that's what we've seen happen over the past couple of years. We need to have more integrity around that. Family freedom and medical freedom, those choices are super important to people too. We just got to keep that on the top of the mind. I always tell people when I'm not on this show, like if you only listen to the first 2 minutes, you don't listen to the rest of the episode, at least you know where we stand with what we're doing over here. And then we do believe in BJ Palmer's sacred trust and protecting the sacred trust. We think that that's vital for chiropractic. So if you guys don't know what that is, go to your favorite search engine and look for BJ Palmer's last words, the sacred trust. You'll know a whole lot more about chiropractic than you did before. We also support and believe in subluxation-based chiropractic. If that's a big word you've never heard before, go and search for that. If you're in the chiropractic space and you don't believe in that, maybe our show's not for you. Maybe it is. Maybe you'll learn something. And then lastly, we believe in innate intelligence and universal intelligence, and that when man or woman, the physical, get adjusted, it connects them to man or woman, the spiritual. And with that being said, Jazz Shirley, welcome.
Hello.
So I know that's a big intro, but I believe it's essential for the audience to at least understand the major premise behind what we do with this podcast. And I know that we're hitting a lot of, iTunes and Spotify and things like that. So I'm excited to share the story of Chiro Hustle, but more excited to share your journey of how you got to where you are today. So let's just jump right into it. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right.
I think so.
Your chiropractic story. You've been out into the chiropractic world for a couple years now. So How did you get into the profession, and how are you transcending to where you are today?
So I've always wanted, right from a young age, I was determined to be the equine GB physiotherapist for the Olympic team. And then I actually really hurt myself on a horse, typically. And I went to a physiotherapist and it didn't really help me. So then it took me on another path, and I tried osteopathy. And again, it left me with bruises, and I was like, I just couldn't do that, and I didn't want to do that. And so I got to the point where I was a bit lost, and I knew I wanted to do something like this, but I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. And so I was actually riding at a race yard, and a girl was studying to be a chiropractor at the time, and she kind of mentioned it to me. And what's quite funny is because my horse has had chiropractic for many years, and my horse was getting adjusted before I was getting adjusted, and I never really put two and two together that I should go down that route. And I remember wanting to be a vet, and the vet saying to me, my equine chiropractor was actually a vet as well, and she was like, "Don't be a vet, be an equine chiropractor." And so I looked it all up, and you couldn't be an equine chiropractor at the time without studying humans. And so I was a bit like, oh, humans. But I eventually enrolled, and I went to Mintimini Open Day, and the thing that stuck with me, I don't know why it stuck with me so much, but they said to me, everybody thinks when you cut yourself and you put on the plaster that the plaster's doing the work, but it's not. And I was like, oh yeah, that does make sense actually. The body is the one healing. And I don't know why I never thought of that before. But I remember that stuck with me. And they offered me a place to start the following week. But I didn't want to start the week. I wanted to go away and live life for a year. And then I started the following year. And all the way through uni, I didn't really understand philosophy, and you'd go to the philosophy lectures, and you kind of had this big spectrum, and you kind of got described that you had the really crazy hippie woo-woo vitalistic chiropractors one side, and then you had the other side, you had the really dull, boring, evidence-based the other side. And I was like, okay, well, I don't want to be any of the extremes, so I'll be somewhere in the middle. But I had no idea how to be that thing in the middle. I just knew I didn't want to be crazy or boring. So I kind of just sat there in the middle and never really understood philosophy. And then when I left, I was very pain-based. I worked in a clinic with my friend, the one that I used to ride out with. She offered me a place in her clinic when I graduated, and it was just very different to how I thought it would be when I would leave. And so my friend actually said to me he'd been offered a job, and he had a job at the time. So he said, well, why didn't you apply for it? I recommended you. And he described it to me, and he said, well, it's diversified adjusting and it's vitalistic. And I literally, my heart sunk, because I couldn't adjust diversified at all, and I wasn't vitalistic at all. And I remember having to, for my interview, I had to Google the word vitalistic and vitalism and all of that sort of stuff, because I couldn't remember what they said in our philosophy lectures, and that sort of stuff just didn't resonate with me at all. And I eventually went, and it's quite funny because I went in a mask to my interview with my future boss, and she must have thought I was crazy, but I equally thought she was crazy because she was vitalistic. And yeah, from there it's kind of, the rest is history. I really wanted to just learn diversified, so I was very much like, if I don't like it and they're all crazy, then at least they learn something from it. And so I started training with them weekly. We trained in our Roths, we trained in our initials, we trained adjusting every week. And then it finally got to getting unleashed onto the public. And that was quite, I think the thing that stuck with me the most is both my colleagues, they were both saying, most people haven't had chiropractic, so they do not know what a good adjustment is and a bad adjustment. So just go for it. And I did. And it's quite funny because there's people I have now that I saw when I first started there, so 2 years ago. And I know damn well that they're not going to remember the difference in my adjustments from now to then. But you're so terrified at the start that you're going to give a really rubbish adjustment, and I don't know why it bothers you so much, but they don't remember it. And so yeah, it's kind of, I've had to learn a lot along the way and completely change my philosophy in life, because I've come to realize that you can't just have a philosophy at work. You do have to change your whole philosophy in life as well. And now I am just as crazy and vitalistic as them. So it only took 2 years, but I got there, and yeah, it just took persistence.
Well, there's a lot of unpacking that I have to do now with this opener. First things first, you guys call them plasters, we call them band-aids.
Very
And
true.
what I tell people is if you cut yourself, you don't have to look at your finger and tell it to heal. It heals naturally.
Yeah.
You have innate intelligence inside you that makes your body heal. It's not your decision whether it heals or not. So that's a really cool thing too. But
Very good.
your journey through being an equine chiropractor to now working with humans, and re-educating yourself on vitalism and how that plays into chiropractic, and then changing like an entire life philosophy. That must be a big job for you to do after you've already been like committed to, I'm going to be a chiropractor. This is my gateway to being an equine chiropractor. I'm not good at diversified. I don't understand vitalism. How did you start to like piece by piece rebrand yourself and to create a new narrative for yourself?
I think it was surrounding yourself by people that have that mindset. So my colleagues Lou and Austin, they are very vitalistic, and I would literally sit and listen to them all the time. And so listening to their stories, and at first you're a bit like, oh, they're a bit far-fetched, but then you come to realize they're actually true and they're not making them up. And then you realize how great chiropractic is. And so when I started seeing those stories for myself, I think that helped me as well. Um, I think I joined Tim Young's focus group, and he talked a lot about personal philosophy, and that really helped me as well because I realized that I didn't really have a personal philosophy. I just kind of got by in life, and so having that drilled into me constantly as well has helped.
That's cool. It's cool to see like once people become a professional, they can still be formed into becoming a better practitioner. And I think you have to be
Mhm.
good with your hands. Like I did a talk a couple weeks ago in Philadelphia, and I basically said, a chiropractor should be able to move the bones.
Mhm.
And I was like, I don't care if you're practicing flying sevens. I don't care. I was like, but if you're coming out as a new grad and you don't know how to actually adjust, we have
Mhm.
problems. Like
Yeah.
there's something like catastrophically wrong with chiropractic if students come out of school and they don't know how to adjust and move bones. And I
Yeah.
was like, I don't care what you guys do out there, but figure that out. And then chiropractic will survive and it will thrive and it'll do really well.
Yeah.
So I know you do have some messages for students too. I know that we were saying, hey, if there's one driver we could hit on today, what would it be? And I know you've only been out for 2 years, but let's talk about your perspective of how you've transitioned to who you are today. And let's focus on the students and the new grads.
Okay. Yeah. So I would say, like I said just previous, always surround yourself by those people that are in that mindset that you want to be. Um, I can't remember who said it, but my boss always tells me you're the 6 people you surround yourself by. Um, so if you surround yourself by gym goers, you're going to be a gym bunny and all of the rest. And so um, if you surround yourself by those sort of people, that's who you're going to become. Um, and so I think that sort of stuff is really important, but also going to lots of different places to meet new people. The UCA conference is a big one for us. I remember going there and seeing Donald Francis, and his talk on stage has always stayed with me because because he's got such great humor. Um, I really just related with him, and that really stuck with me. Um, but yeah, I think you've got to work on yourself as well because you can't just change your philosophy at work. Because if you're, I don't know, telling your clients to do some exercise, eat well, and then you go home and eat takeaway every night and you sit on the sofa 24/7, you can't, it just doesn't work. You have to be congruent in what you do at work and in life. Um, and so I think that's a big thing as well.
So maybe let's go this direction. What advice would you give to a new grad or chiropractic student to get better at adjusting?
Practice. Lots of practice, but also don't be scared to adjust people. Um, I I would say the biggest thing, one of the really random things that we learned when I was practicing is practicing with a medicine ball. Because I really struggled visualizing the adjustment, because obviously you have like Kairos and all that sort of stuff, and we used to do the like the different training and getting our muscle memory, but I really struggled thinking this to actually a human head, and I was like, how do you get the weight behind that and then into a physical object? I just couldn't, my head didn't work that way and I couldn't figure out how to do it. And so I used to hold a medicine ball and adjust onto the medicine ball, because it was like in my head it worked that way because you were going into a heavy object like a head. And that really helped for me. But practicing, going to loads of different seminars and finding the adjustment and the technique that works best for you, because like we've done Syntropy, we've done Tim Young, we've done Tom Waller, we've done loads of those sort of stuff, but you'll find one that works best for you, and then it's just practice.
Yeah. You've made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. This episode is sponsored by Imaging Services, Chiro Health USA, Chiro Moguls, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, Sherman College of Chiropractic, New Patients in a Box, the Influencer Authority Podcast Training, Mango Voice, Life Chiropractic College West, and M-Sculpt. Let's hustle. I think, from my perspective, not being a chiropractor, I think that the more mentors you have that are actually doing the right things with technique, and like you said, the more practice that you have practicing the technique, the better you're going to be able to deliver, and to take care of people. So I think there's a lot of great things you're saying there. And sometimes it's awkward to learn. Sometimes we don't know what to do to like make ourselves better or to do something to improve. And I think it's really like, it's honest, I adjusted on a medicine ball.
Honestly, I struggle so hard because I remember Austin and Lou were like, just adjust. And I was like, but I can't. And I literally was there for ages, like, I just don't know how to do it. And I just couldn't get the motion from doing it in the air to doing it on someone's neck. And that medicine ball really helped me. So if it helps someone else, perfect.
I think it's a great takeaway because I know that you're not alone. I know that there's a lot of first year, second year, like late grads that are really struggling with understanding how to adjust. So I just think some of the resources you provided, Tim Young, Syntropy, Tom Waller, some of these people that are actually like teaching people how to do this the right way, that's massive. Because a lot of times, I don't know how you can get a, like you call it uni, I call it college, but I don't know how you get a uni degree.
Yeah.
And they release you out to practice and people aren't competent with adjusting technique. Like, what are we doing here? Like, we didn't learn philosophy either. So like, where are we? So, I mean, it's just a challenge to people out there listening to like say, look, if you're going to become chiropractor or you're going to like learn chiropractic, adjustment and philosophy are essential.
Yeah, definitely. And it's one of those things as well, like I was so worried about hurting people, but as soon as you learn the correct line of drive you're going in, you're not going to hurt someone, because it's just
and then the miracle is, wow, I just did that.
Pretty much. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and then you can repeat process, and then you can get more efficient with it, and you can change people's lives faster. So kudos to you.
And it's one of those things that Austin always says to me. He's like, your best adjustment now is going to be your rubbish adjustment in 6 months' time. And so you're just like, oh yeah, that's true.
You're just leveling
So,
up, and eventually it'll be Jazz Shirley's technique seminars.
you never
What?
know.
Why not? Why not?
Why not? Exactly.
So, marketing. I have some
Mhm.
marketing questions for you. Is that okay?
Yeah, go for it.
So, what's worked? What have you guys tried? What didn't work? And
Yeah.
what do you guys like to do?
Um, in terms of marketing itself, so we do quite a lot of spinal screenings locally, which is quite fun. And if you get a good place, it's fun. Um, and we do lots of posture screens, so we do free posture screens as well in the clinic. So um, I think posture is one of the biggest things that's causing a lot of issues, and so it does get quite a lot of people in. Um, and then we also have been offering quite a lot of good. We have quite a low fee for our initial consults and report findings because it gets people in, and then we kind of go from there really in terms of the lovely world of sales.
Well, if you guys ever need help doing a marketing event,
Yeah.
sign me up. There was a stretch where I did 600 of spinal screenings in 2.5 years. So
Wow, that's
but
impressive.
I could probably learn from you guys. So I'm not coming over to like work. I'm coming to learn.
No, that's very impressive. I don't know how you did it.
28 a month. That's how I did it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
I
impressive.
well, not being a chiropractor, I was able to network with many chiropractors in the Denver area.
Hmm.
And they started telling each other that there's this guy that could go out and get all these new patients. So they started sharing me with like their colleague, and then the next colleague would reach out. And before I know it, a group of 7 reached out and a group of 8 reached out. Before I knew it, I had 30 clients all in
Wow.
6 months. So that's how it happened.
Yeah, we really struggle finding places to screen because I don't know what it is, but we just really struggle finding places to screen. Um, so yeah, we need your help on that one.
Well, maybe I can offer some suggestions to you. Is that okay if I do that while we're doing the interview? So
Definitely, yeah.
I would recommend every chiropractor to go to their search engine. If they use Google, use Google. If they use, whatever they like to do their searches on,
Hmm.
Safari. But look for community events within 7 miles of your clinic. Over here, I tell people to look for like farmers markets, health expos,
Okay.
because a lot of times there's companies that will specifically have a health expo that they're
Yeah.
running for their employees, and they'd be happy to have a chiropractor involved with that. Um, I also really like fairs and festivals, so street fests, county fairs, state fairs, like anywhere where there's more people.
Yeah.
Specifically, if I can go to a location where there's strollers, women are the decision makers for the families. So wherever there's a more woman centric event, like a woman's expo, that'd be
Yeah.
perfect.
Okay.
I do really well at, gosh, home and garden shows. Those are pretty
Okay.
big. They never expect a chiropractor to be there until 7 chiropractors show up. And now you
Yeah.
have 7 chiropractors at every home and garden show in the UK. Um, but yeah, I think the more places where you can see strollers,
Okay.
and I think bridal expos are great places,
Okay.
because those are all women between the ages of 25 to 55. So you're going to find like your ideal clients there. But
Very true.
I would just build as many resources as you can, 5Ks, 10Ks,
Yeah.
you name it. Wherever there's an opportunity to go out there and have a presence, people are going to show up to you. So
Mm.
didn't want to
Okay.
be the interview topic, but I think when we're talking about community events, you got to get
Hmm.
out there and shake hands and meet families.
Okay. That's a good tip. Thank you.
Yeah. So your personal health. I always like this question, but what are you doing to stay healthy? I know that you talked about congruency earlier, not sitting and watching the telly and eating takeout every night. So how are you staying healthy and what are you doing?
So I'm a keen walker. I have dogs, so me and my mum tend to walk quite a lot. Um, so we walk together about 4 times a week. I also have horses, So I ride those, and looking after them is a bit of a sport in itself. I did one of my horses was ill the other day, and I had to walk her around in circles, and I did 5,500 steps walking in a 20-meter circle. So that was fun. So horses and walking are like kind of my main exercise that I do. And then in terms of food wise, I'm not a big meat eater. So I quite like keeping meat on the down low. And then in terms of, have you read the Well Adjusted Babies book?
I haven't, but I know of the book.
It literally makes you very paranoid about everything you eat because it's like I didn't realize that so much food got radiated and things like that. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to drink water. I don't want to eat because you don't realize what actually goes into our foods. So I've been trying to be a bit more, I've been going more organic than just buying mainstream food, really. I'm quite lucky where I am because I'm in a small village. So we have like farm shops and things like that locally, which is really handy as well. So yeah, that's kind of my health.
Well, I think it's cool. I think it's great that you stay active with family. I think it's great that you stay committed to the horses. And I do think if people knew what was in what they eat, they probably wouldn't eat it. And you know, there's a saying that used to be really popular. It said, "It's not what you eat. It's not what you are. It's what you eat." No, gosh, maybe I'm mixing this one up.
I think I know the one you mean.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But it's what you eats. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, I think that we have to also be considerate of what we're eating and what it's eating, like because that becomes us, that becomes ourselves. Yeah, so we have to always be like considerate of how we're feeding ourselves. And you know, I've obviously before this whole past 3 years, I would always tell people that we're feeding ourselves sick. Like we're not eating for, you know, vitality, a key word earlier in our talk. We're not eating for vitality, we're eating for a caloric model. So a lot of times people are just eating the least amount of money that you spend with the most calories is how they market food to us. If you want a less calorie dense food, it costs more money, but it's healthier for you. So the industry is marketed to sell higher calorie food to us for lower money rather than the alternative of spending more money for lower calorie food. So that's why we're in the mess that we're in. But I think you're right. You got to be mindful of how you feed yourself.
Yeah, because you go to the supermarket and you'll see a chicken for like £2, and you just think, how on earth has a chicken been raised for £2? So it's just
yeah. So let's go speed round. I know we have a few minutes left on the interview, but I'm really curious, since you're a new practitioner, how do you see the future of chiropractic?
Hopefully we can change. We can have an influence, and we can change a lot. It's obviously in a bit of a tricky time at the minute. I know recently they've been they were thinking about getting rid of philosophy in the schools. We had to complete these surveys to try and abolish that. But at my work itself, so we started holding philosophy nights for students. We did our first one about 2 weeks ago. We had myself, Lou Austin, Chris Harm, and Donald Francis speak. And we did it for £10 a ticket for the students. And we, with the money that we raised, we bought UCA tickets for them. And so we had about 20 people turn up, which was quite okay. We didn't really advertise. We were quite pleased with that. But we advertised for one in 6 months' time, and the amount of chiropractors that want to speak is really nice to see, because it just shows that they want to see that change in the profession as well. And so I'm very optimistic, because after seeing the amount of interest we've had in just the one talk, it's made me quite positive for the future.
So here's the model: postgraduate philosophy symposiums.
I think that's a good one.
And adjusting symposiums.
Yeah. I
And
think,
because I think that those are the cornerstones for the profession. They always have been.
yeah. And I think there needs to be a gateway because to me as well, like as soon as I left school, I struggled so much with selling chiropractic because I was like, I was like, how can I take this much money off someone? But then you're realizing if you don't sell, you can't help. And then also you're changing their life. And so I think there's so many things that in between leaving uni and starting, there's such a big gap. So we do need to fill it.
Yeah, chiropractic finishing school. So two more questions.
Mhm.
Who are some of your heroes and who helped inspire you to become the chiropractor you are today?
I'd say heroes in life. My nan was my biggest hero just because she was the strongest person I ever knew. And she kind of inspires me every day, basically. And she's pretty cool. And then I've said them before, but I think for me, it's definitely Tim and Donald, just because obviously my colleagues as well have helped me tremendously. Um, but Donald, because I have that clear image of him at UCA doing his talk, and that just helped me change my mindset. And also Tim's philosophy helped me change completely. So they're kind of,
Yeah, it's important to find good mentors and good leaders and people to build belief within us. And
hmm
I think that that's a part where a lot of people are struggling. They drift away and they, get complacent. They lose their self-esteem. They wonder why they're doing this anymore, and they're
yeah,
not having fun in practice. So I think anybody wanted to find some good resources, check out Donald Francis and Tim Young. That's who she's referring to. And let's close out with two more things. Tell us a miracle story, something you've seen happen in your clinic since you've been there.
so it's a sad story in a way, but basically I had a lady come in. She was about 50 and she had AS, so ankylosing spondylitis, and she basically her whole spine was fused up into her neck. And she came in, and I'm not exaggerating when I said this was her posture. And I tried to X-ray her, and she couldn't lift her head at all. And I remember because she's very traditional, and her biggest things were the fact that she couldn't clean her house, she couldn't cook for her family or anything like that. And I started adjusting her. She couldn't lie on her back, so she couldn't lie on her front, sorry. So I was quite limited at the start to what I could do. But I could adjust her neck because her neck wasn't fused. So I adjusted just her neck, her pelvis using the drops. And I used the Vitalism on her spine. And within a couple of weeks, she could lift her head up. And she was like, I was able to hoover the stairs. And to me, that's not a big thing. But to her, it was a really big thing. And it just made me really, really happy because it was such a small thing, but it completely changed her life. And nobody else had helped her at all in that. But then I just got really frustrated because she had a flare up, and the doctors told her to stop seeing her chiropractor and she hasn't been back since. That's one of the lessons I learned as to pass on to the students is you're going to have a lot of anger,
Yeah,
a lot of frustration.
you have to process a lot of us against them, and
hmm
the what is it? David versus Goliath, and
Yeah.
they would always ask David, "How did you kill the giant? How did you hit the giant?" And David would reply, "How could I miss the giant? He was so big."
I like that.
So when we think about them versus us, if they
hmm
just had a chance to know more about chiropractic,
hmm
they would write love letter stories to their chiropractor for saving their lives too.
Yeah,
um, so last question: if you're the last chiropractor on planet Earth, would the profession survive?
I would like to think so. Is that a good enough question?
That is
Answer.
that is good enough. Well, this is episode 486 of the Chiro Hustle podcast. Thank you for being our guest today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Is there anything I didn't ask you that you wanted to touch on today?
I think we have everything covered, I think.
All right.
Yeah,
Well,
I
you
think so.
get some sleep over there in
Thank you.
Oxfordshire, and
That's for sure.
we'll call it an evening for us over here in Grand Junction, Colorado. And
Amazing.
if people want to get in touch with you, where can we send them to?
So my Instagram is Dr. Jazz Chiro. I had to think then. But I'm also I work at Results Align Chiropractic, and so we have lots of pages. We have a seminar page because we've been hosting lots of seminars. So Donald recently came to us. Tom came to us, and I think we've got lots of things coming up in the next couple of months. And because we're based in the same town as McTimney College, we can hopefully influence lots of students. So if you guys, students wise, look us up.
Well, when you guys are ready to bring me over to speak, I have my hand raised already. So
you're welcome anytime.
With that being said, I appreciate you making time for us on Chiro Hustle, and I'm going to close out.
Amazing.
You guys are
Thank
just
you.
one story away. Keep hustling. Thanks, Jazz. Have a great night.
Thank you. Bye.
Talk soon. Bye. Thanks for listening to Chiro Hustle. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.